From the middle of America, welcome to the Oklahoma City Real Estate Show, covering local market data, news, and reports to arm you with information you need to empower your investing and strengthen your American rights. Top realtor, investor, husband, father, and veteran. Here is your host, Landon Witt. For more information and to listen or watch online, visit okcrealestateshow.com.
Okay, like I said before, I'm going to try to keep this as audio friendly as possible. When you look at the layout of Oklahoma City, I'm going to be using Google Maps for this early demonstration. You have Oklahoma City broken up into four corners or crosshair. If you look at downtown Oklahoma City, if you pull up Google Maps, Oklahoma City, the letters Oklahoma City is considered the actual core downtown of Oklahoma City. Okay, this is important as your guideline of that middle center. So we're looking in the middle of Oklahoma City. A little bit of history in Oklahoma City. In the late 70s, early 80s, we had an issue which the oil crisis was occurring, OPEC and all that movement, combined with a couple of local banks that were practicing lending outside of federal guidelines and lending to friends, lending to institutions that didn't really have the financial records that they needed to, and that resulted in these companies essentially going out of business with these fraudulent loans, and also resulted in a lot of people losing their jobs all at once.
It would become the biggest bank failure in which the government did not back deposits over $100,000. Those uninsured deposits totaled $195 million, most of them belonging to other financial institutions. The feds, unable to find a buyer for Penn Square, moved in over the Independence Day holiday, declared the bank insolvent on Monday, July 5, 1982, and on Tuesday the 6th, depositors lined up in the Oklahoma heat outside the Deposit Insurance National Bank of Oklahoma City. The next few years would see dozens of other financial institutions follow Penn Square into financial ruin. And while a number of the bank's officials were eventually indicted, only a handful were convicted. And viewed through the lens of history, their most notable crime seems to be naivete about the stability of the energy business in general and oil prices in particular.
In fact, we had a broker who was the director of our MLS, or the Realtors Association here in Oklahoma City, stating that in 1980, people were driving around with bumper stickers on their cars saying the last ones to leave Oklahoma City, turn off the lights. And that infrastructure, those homes went decrepit for a good 15 years. And you can still see that today, especially if you move south of Oklahoma City. Remember that square, that corner where Oklahoma City is. So right in this area here, right in the middle. If you go south of here, this whole area south of downtown, that's south of the river, really kind of like a little tiny Mexico in terms of, if anybody's been traveling to one of the towns in Mexico, you've got this kind of third world setup look there. Well, South Oklahoma City is like that in a lot of ways. However, that being said, there has been a trend in the right direction, especially the last 5 years on the south side. This is primarily where you're going to see your highest cash flow numbers, okay? But a lot of the experienced investors know that areas of town with the highest cash flow aren't always trouble-free. There usually comes higher costs associated with that in terms of higher tenant turnover, crime rates, that kind of thing. And that is something you want to pay attention to on the south side. Although when you find a deal and the house has been maintained and you have the correct property management company that knows how to deal with these type of rentals, this is a great area. Now, if you do that Foursquare, again, with the crosshairs of that Foursquare being right over Oklahoma City, the northeast corner, or square number 2, that top right, is northeast Oklahoma City. This experienced a very similar history to the south side, in that this was part of a redlining district in the 70s, where this area was earmarked, and this is historical, for African American home buyers only. Like, this was, if you were African American in 1970 and you wanted to get a home loan, this is the only area that a federally backed loan would loan you.
Are you looking for a new neighborhood to live in? Then come on down to Redlining Realty, sanctioned by the U.S. government. There's depressed infrastructure, underfunded schools, no white people. They're all in the suburbs. Heck, we'll even throw in free shoes. Now, doesn't that sound nice? Call Redlining Realty today, and we'll get you a house built on the most American foundation of all, racism.
Interesting story about our past, some of the darker history of the American dream, if you will. On the northwest side, okay, this is square number 1 on that crosshairs, where we have historically the highest appreciation. Okay, so that's coming from this urban core and sprawls out towards Lake Hefner, which is in the northwest corner, all the way to Lake Overholster. All of this has statistically had the highest appreciation, with the exception of a few pockets. And we talk about those in detail when we go on our investor tours, or if I'm talking to you one-on-one, we get into those pockets to avoid. You can also just see them on something like the heat map that we've talked about from CoreLogic, where they talk about the appreciation heat maps. You can also see it on Zillow with their Zestimate scores. Those areas, especially like along I-40 up till about 15th Street, same thing, just no appreciation. Speaking of no appreciation, but interesting value proposition, if we go east of Oklahoma City towards Midwest City, this is going to be north of Tinker Air Force Base. So Tinker Air Force Base is in quadrant 4, which would be the southeast side. Just north of there is Midwest City. Midwest City is statistically a linear market to the book. And I mean to the book, almost zero appreciation over the years. It is a solid investment in that if you get cash flow and you rate your investment numbers off of cash flow, and you expect cash flow only, you can do really good with your portfolio packages in Midwest City. Just understand very, very, very minimal cash flow. I've personally experienced cash flow that's actually less than inflation. So one could even say you maybe even get negative cash flow over there, or negative appreciation. However, the cash flow works. Because of the low appreciation, you've got a good rent-to-value ratio a lot of times on those properties. So make sure where you're buying a property in this area of town that doesn't need massive repairs. Okay. Bringing it down south to the fourth corner, this is nearing Del City, which is outside of Tinker Air Force Base. Del City, during the 1980s, went through a tough time just as the rest of Oklahoma City, and they came out into the 90s. They didn't really surface even until the 2000s. They started getting more and more homeowners and investors buying in Del City up until the housing crisis happened. And during the sell-off, or as these mortgages started, being recalled, the city of Del City said, we've got to stop these surge of investors who were buying these properties that had been foreclosed on due to the housing recession or the recall of all these bad housing loans. And they created a home inspection program. This home inspection program is a beast, okay? And the reason why it's a beast is because nobody knows what they're checking for. They give you a 10-point, rough outline of some things that they may check, but then if you ask for the actual list of things that they'll look for, there is no list. In fact, they just say the inspector gets there and he'll tell you what things will not pass. As you can see, that opens up the door very widely for your rental property or your investment being subjected to the whims of whatever the inspector decides that day. And this inspection happens every single time the occupant changes. So that's a city ordinance that when your occupant changes, in other words, when another tenant comes in, you have to do this inspection each time. So does that mean you shouldn't invest in Del City? No, it doesn't mean that. What it means is that if you do invest in Del City, you need to know this. Your property management company needs to be familiar with this, okay? And those two things working together, and also giving yourself enough buffer on that rent to value ratio to where you can make up for that, that hassle of dealing with this additional layer of inspections. Even if your home is Section 8 approved, you're still going through the city's inspection following that. Oklahoma City, no inspections like that. The only time Oklahoma City comes through your house is when you change the mechanicals and you request a mechanical permit or an electrical permit or a plumbing permit. When you're renovating the home, putting new things in there that require a permit, that's when the inspector's going through. But they don't care. You can change occupants once a month if you wish. They're not going to be coming through the home. So that brings us to south of east of the airport. So we're going south of Oklahoma City, south of 240, getting into, what is this, southwest 80th, 89th. Oklahoma Community Colleges here. We start to gentrify. And what I mean by gentrify is the properties start to increase in quality and value due to a large portion of homeowners. A lot less landlords and a lot more homeowners taking pride in their ownership, getting south of 89th. Still some pockets here as we work towards Moore. Moore is the home of one of the largest tornado attacks, if you will, or tornado natural destruction that occurred in Oklahoma. I think that was 2005 was when that occurred, still affecting the homeowner insurance rates in Moore because of that wind threat. Now, Oklahoma City does have higher insurance rates overall compared to national averages, but much lower property taxes compared to other states. So we kind of win on the property tax side, but lose on the insurance side. It ends up still being far superior, especially compared to states like Texas. Okay, so we've talked about the four-corner concept. Okay, that gets us kind of our core in Oklahoma City, that four-corner, right? We got like this, four corners, okay? Corner number one, highest appreciation. Corner number two, byproduct of that redlining district, is coming up in value, but will be a long play, okay? Same thing with corner number three, okay? 1, 2, 3, and corner number 4 is Tinker Air Force Base, and again, that superlinear market based on cash flow. So taking what you've learned from this video, you're going to be able to go and look at the market now, whether it's on Zillow or whether it's on Redfin or Trulia.com or OKCReal.com or OKCReal.store, which is our MLS backdoor access. If you haven't been on that, you should check that out. You can also go to OKCRealEstateShow.com, go for search homes. At the top, there's a drop-down box. You can search through there. Either case, there's a map there, and when you gather through that map, it begins to make sense where to kind of begin your search. Also take into consideration that as you get into multifamily housing, especially if it's a house that's been converted to a duplex, you do run into zoning issues. A lot of these properties were converted into a duplex, but the zoning wasn't converted, so we'll want to check those kind of things. But this video will give you kind of a prompting idea of what to look for in 2020. A lot of the updates we talk about of the new infrastructure and things that have been added to Oklahoma City are going to occur at the urban core. Okay, that's like the convention center, Strawberry Fields development plans, which is the urbanization. They're doing the condo development, Scissortail Park, which has already been 75% completed. That's a $130 million park project that is going to be from the north side of the river to the south side. Just a wonderful outdoor environment and amphitheater and that kind of thing going on. You've also got next to the airport, okay, that's Will Rogers Airport in this area. You've got the Amazon fulfillment center that has been finished last year. So that bringing in new and hustle and bustle. I think there was 1,000 jobs generated out of that. And before we end this video, when you look at the future of Tinker Air Force Base, look at 230 aerospace companies that are already here in Oklahoma City that are bringing on more and more people as Tinker Air Force Base is expanding 12 different massive hangars. They've already finished one. They're going to continue one just about every year. And they're also incorporating 3D print technology here on site. So they're not shipping in aircraft parts as much as they were. They're actually shipping in raw materials and then printing on site the materials to overhaul the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force's plane inventory, things like the KC-135 Strata tanker, the in-air refueler, the B-1 bomber, and coming the the B-21 or the Raider. It's the replacement for the B-2 bomber. That one's coming here in about 2 years. We'll start to see that airframe being maintenanced here. So, and that's a total stealth technology aircraft. There's probably some other super secret stuff going on over there, but exciting stuff, as well as the medical industry. Again, on the next to the urban core over here, we got the VA medical industry hospital, as well as an 8-story new patient seeing facility going up just south of there. So that northeast corner, that corner number 2 I talked about, that's why I'm saying long play, good play, solid play on the northeast side, but just hang in there. You guys that buy a property from me and you want to sell it in 6 months, dude, take a hike or just wait. Go buy stocks. Do something like that. Don't buy into the northeast side or the south side with a 2-year plan. Now, things happen. I get it. But these plans are 5 and 10-year plans, and you're really going to see some value investing in Oklahoma City. As far as that corner number 1, that northwest side, tons of competition. The margin for the deals is getting so narrow now because we've got California, New York, Florida investors flooding. I get 3 emails a week. Landon, what inventory do you have? I got nothing in that area right now. The stuff that we do find goes in a day, half a day, or it's a property that no one can make money off of, right? It's stuck in a situation where, again, somebody bought it 6 months ago. They got to sell it. They're not wanting to lose a dime. The tenant maybe destroyed the property. Something, some kind of situation like that. Conditions on the property that enable it not to sell. So, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you're on the podcast, make sure you subscribe with your podcast generation. I'm going to try to keep these things rolling through 2020. Again, we're on inventory shortage, which means that education and knowledge is key. Okay, key. When you get into your margins, you're going to be coming up with more and more creative ways to be able to maintain these properties and be able to win over your competitors and do it right to stay in the game the longest and for the long run. Thanks for watching, guys.
For more information and to listen or watch online, visit OKCRealEstateShow.com.